Now we move to the bigger picture. Well, let's talk about the Russian people first. And I can't speak on behalf of the Russian people because I'm not one of them. And, whatever contacts I have contacts on both sides. I have people who are adamantly against this war. These are people that were primarily pro-Western to begin with. But they're not defeatist. They're not sitting there going, oh, my God, we're losing. What they're saying is, I don't like this war. We shouldn't be involved in this. Then you have the other people who are supporting this war, and they support for a variety of reasons. One, they bought into the Russian case early on, and they've been supporting this war from day one. Or two, and I think two is the majority. Russia has committed, and Russia must win. They're not going to quibble about this, that, or the other thing. It's Mother Russia is engaged in a life and death struggle. Mother Russia must win. And let's get this over. We've started something. Let's finish this. Let's do it. And I think the military falls into the number two category, if you want my opinion. I think if you had polled the majority of the military prior to this conflict in a poll where they couldn't have been held to account, I think the majority of them would have argued against a military operation in Ukraine because it just brings so many risks, near-term and long-term risks. But the military executes orders that it's given in a professional manner. Now, having committed, the military leadership will go 180 degrees out and tell their civilian leadership, we can't stop till the job's done. Right. Any half measure here is a military defeat. And as military professionals, we cannot have the Russian army being defeated. The Russian army must win and must win decisively. This must end in a decisive Russian military victory. And so we need you politicians, now that you've started this, to finish this. And I believe the Russian politicians are led by a Russian politician who is cut from the same piece of cloth. I actually believe that Putin didn't want this war. I think Putin did everything he could to prevent this war. And I believe that Putin was finally confronted with a series of events that made this war inevitable. And so he did it. But I think he's not one of these American politicians who second guess himself every day of the week. I think Putin said, do it, get it done. We're going to get it done at whatever cost, and not whatever cost.
My sense of Putin has always been that he's a very cautious man.
Yeah.
But when he has to move, he moves. He doesn't mess around. He doesn't dither. He doesn't second guess himself or his people. But he is very reluctant to take that big step until he's like, okay, we got to go, and he doesn't mess around. That seems to be the track record of the man.
And he's also I think his track record is he's not rash, he's not impulsive, he's not a gambler. So when he made this decision to go into Ukraine, he has thought out the consequences. We keep having people saying that he was misled by his generals and all that. That's not who he is, and that's not who the Russian military is. I can readily buy into a scenario where the 5th Department of the FSB thought that they were going to be better received by the Ukrainians than they actually were. And I can see where Putin would say, we had bad intelligence, and that's why we got a bloody nose early on, because we went in with leading assumptions that didn't prove correct. But I also believe that Putin's the kind of guy that would have told his military, okay, let's say we cross the border and all these assessments are wrong. We get hit in the face. What do we do next? What's our plan? How do we recover from this? And you saw there was no let up in the Russian campaign. Yeah. They kept going. They adapted as necessary, which proves that this is mature leadership leading a mature and capable force, implementing a mature and flexible plan.
The Russian Foreign Office, everybody, and Europe said no, and Washington said no. No, you can't do that. Now what's happened? Nearly a year later, they asked Putin, please come to Minsk and discuss with Poroshenko, Russia, Ukraine, and Europe, a three-way deal. 4,000 people have died. 1 million people have been turned into refugees. The Donbass has been destroyed for an agreement that could have had without one shot fired in November 1 year ago. Who's responsible for that? Historians will look back and ask, Who was responsible for the deaths of those people, that destruction, those refugees, when the outcome was available in November 2013 with a little diplomacy? That is a collapse of diplomacy. Why did the West exclude Russia from the negotiations in November? That's the question.
You actually...
Do you know the reason why?
Why?
What do you think?
But you tell me.
I think it was about NATO expansion, that trade agreement.
Oh, obviously that's another huge topic because many believe that NATO expansion is the main stumbling point between Russia and the West. Also, NATO's strategy to actually move Ukraine out of Russia's orbit is a huge problem for Russia. Should Russia consider NATO's actions in Europe as a threat?
Well, if I found out where you lived and I came to your house and I sat out in front of your house with a lot of weapons, and I said to you, Sophie, I'm not here to harm you. This is good for you. This is security. You'd be frightened and worried and buy a few guns to protect yourself, obviously. Look, when NATO expansion began in the 1990s, the late George Kennan, who was considered the wisest man in America about American-Russian relations, said this is a terrible, reckless, stupid decision, and it will lead to a new Cold War. 20 years later, George, I call him George because we both were in Princeton together, we saw each other regularly, was correct. He was not alone. I said it. Jack Matlock, who was Reagan's ambassador to the Soviet Union under Gorbachev, a lot of people warned that the expansion of NATO eastward was going to lead to a very bad situation.